Your recording is in progress. Okay. You're good. There is 5 verses to learn, and they're there in your handbook. And after today's session, I happened to find yesterday, I found yesterday a video where these verses, a YouTube vid, where these verses are nicely pronounced by one devotee. So here they are. Some of you might know these verses already. So I'll just flash through them. You have them there to look at. This is the main one, Anyabhalasada Sunyam, and Savo Piti Vini Muktam Tapbani and Nihimalam Vishikena Vishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchite.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
You can hear me? Everything's in order?
Prabhu, I just wanted to say these verses don't have the Sanskrit markings.
Okay, so does that make, so would that affect the pronunciation? It means they want.
Yeah, it can be difficult. For example, Atah Shri Krishna Nam Adi, A should have a bar above.
Okay, so do you want to give that to the students? You can get
Yes,
the
yes,
correct Sanskrit
yes.
by critics, and that will help in the pronunciation. Yeah. And you're fielding the slokas, Prachur Prabhu? You're doing that?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, all right. So Prachur is in charge of slokas, and he's going to update you with the diacritics on the Sanskrit. But here's the here they are. They're well-known verses. I'm sure some of you have heard these verses before in Prabhupada's lectures and reading his books. Okay, so and here we are. Is the we're going to be covering today. Hopefully today, I'm hopefully hopeful of covering the introduction, the preface, and chapter 1. That's my goal today. Let's see how we do. Okay. So we're going to be covering these points. Now I'm going to do something different than what I remember doing in Bhagavad Gita. So what's going to be different is I'm not going to be fielding or looking at the textbook in the lessons and answering and identifying answers to the questions. You know, we have these list of questions, like here, for example, the self-study. Yeah. Now that I request yourselves to actually do that. It says self-study. So what we're hoping is that during these next few weeks, you're going to dedicate time to actually read the Nectar of Devotion. Yeah. At least now we're only studying, Bhakti Sastri covers the first 19 chapters. All right. So in your own time, in your own study, kind of homework if you want, it'd be good if you can identify the answers to these questions. Because as you know, there will be 2 tests according to Deepa Datri. She explained there'll be 2 tests, and the questions will be taken from this list of questions here, including the analogies as well. All right. So I hope that's okay. I'll leave that up to you in your own time. Now, if you have difficulty in identifying the answer, you can always send me a message on WhatsApp, and I can assist and help. Okay. So here we are going through. And we're going to have, and when it comes to the, what's called the open book assessment, yeah, you can choose, like we did with Bhagavad Gita, you can choose one of these questions. I shall let you choose. It's the same marks for each question. Okay, so we've got question 1, 2, 3, 4, and in section 2, question as 2 choices. Yeah, or 3, 4. Okay, 5. All right, question. Yeah, number 3. There's 2 questions. Excuse me. All right, is that clear with everyone? Jai, I can see some nodding heads. See, it helps to have the cameras on. I can. All right. Now let's just share my screen again. Any questions to begin with? Yeah, I have a question for you. Because this session's from 10:30 until 1:30. I presume there's a break somewhere in there. Is that correct, or are we steaming ahead? Someone has to unmute and tell me.
Yes, Prabhu.
Right.
Somewhere halfway between.
Okay, somewhere halfway between. What is somewhere halfway between?
Around 12.
12. Okay, and for how long?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Wow. Is that enough for everyone?
What's that?
Your voice is breaking up, who's ever speaking. Okay, let's go for that then. No one's complaining. So let's go for 12. 10 minutes from 12. So someone remind me, okay? Just in case I forget. Sometimes I get carried away and I forget and I leave you hanging and you're expecting a break. Okay, so just send me a message. And again, we're on the Zoom, of course, here. So questions, I like questions are good. Questions are good. So I encourage you to ask questions. You can either unmute and ask a question. You can put your thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see that, or Pachur will bring my notice to it. Or you can put it in the chat, okay? If that's more convenient for you, okay? So hopefully you will have a hard copy of Nectar of Devotion with you, or some of you might have. And you'll see in the Nectar of Devotion, on the opening pages, Srila Prabhupada includes this prayer to the six Goswamis. Yeah, it's from the Sat Goswami Astakam. Yeah, 8 verses to the six Goswamis. And this is one of the verses, very relevant to our study of the Nectar of Devotion, because the six Goswamis studied the whole corpus of the Vedic literature, and they established bhakti from studying the Vedic literature, and they gave all proofs, yeah, as instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what we do is each lesson we shall recite this together, okay, and the translation, okay. So let's recite together. It may not come out like a choir, it may not be perfect, but let's just do our best. You can unmute if you like, and we can chant this together. Nana Shastra Vichanike
Nipuno
Nipuno
Dharma Samstapako
Lokanam Hitakaro
Karina Tribhuvane
Manyantaram
Sharanyakaro
Radha Krishna
Krishna Padara Vinda
Bhajana
Bhajano
Nandiram
Namattalikao
Vande Rupa Sanatana
Sanatana Raghuyugao
Shri
Shri
Jiva
Jiva Gopalakao
Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. And a translation, I should read the translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. That's principles of pure devotion. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis, and engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Jai Sat Goswami Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're going to start with the preface. Now, preface, I was looking yesterday, what's the difference between a preface and an introduction? Yeah. Now, an introduction is generally going to introduce you to all the topics of the book or the scripture and what's covered. Now, a preface is more personal. It's more the underlying reason why the author has taken up a specific study. Yeah? So Prabhupada has given a preface to his Nectar of Devotion. And as I'm sure you know, this is a summary study of a book called the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu by, obviously, Rupa Goswami. Yes. So it's a summary, and because the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu itself, it has over 1,000 verses. Yeah. So Prabhupada, in his brilliance, he gave in very early days of our Krishna conscious movement, he saw it as very important that devotees will have access to this Brihad Bhagavatam, to the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. Yeah. The same as he gave a summary of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's the Krishna book. Yeah. So, and Prabhupada's purpose was actually served as well, because Prabhupada did leave the world before he actually completed the 10th canto. Yeah. So he wrote the Krishna book. So in the same way, Prabhupada wanted to make sure that his disciples and followers were introduced to the science of bhakti. And this is really what the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu is all about. You know, the actual science of bhakti and the practice of it. You know, so, and for those who might want to go to infuse to really go deeper as such into this study, you can in your own time for information. There's one very good book which is good for helping us to understand the structure of Nectar of Devotion. It's one book called The Ways of Devotion by Danodas Swami. Now, I had that book, but I borrowed it to someone, and it never made it back. So I was trying to trace it yesterday. So, but that's one book to get if you really want to. He really does a nice. He really explains it nicely and breaks it down nicely to help further one's understanding. If you want, you can look at that. So that's Ways of Devotion by Danodas Swami. And for those who want to go even a little bit deeper, then there's this book here. This is the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu with commentaries of Rupa Goswami, with commentaries by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Yeah. And it's interesting because it includes every verse is here. Every verse of the Nectar of Devotion is here. So it's interesting when you study this, you can really appreciate how Prabhupada has expertly done a summary of this. So they're quite readily available. You can find them quite easily, these books. So that's Danodas Swami, Ways of Devotion, and Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu with commentaries by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And I've been reading this for the last few days, and there's some really interesting points, there to help us more appreciate Prabhupada's presentation. Okay. Now, the original speaker of Nectar of Devotion, or Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu, is actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And you can find this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Rupa Shiksha, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Rupa Goswami. There's also his teachings to Sanatana Goswami. There's also a conversation with Ramananda Roy, Ramanath Sambat. And so this Nectar of Devotion, or Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu, was given in a synopsis form by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you can read that in the Madhya Lila. And then Rupa Goswami expanded on it as per instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah? And Lord Chaitanya, he instructed Rupa Goswami for 10 days. He was, Rupa Goswami was hearing directly from Lord Chaitanya at the Dashrameda Ghat at Prayag. And that's there in the Majja Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Rupa Goswami, he assimilated these instructions and then he systematically presents those instructions in his writing. Yeah, and Prabhupada gives. And it was in 1970 that Srila Prabhupada summarized the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and he gave it the title The Nectar of Devotion, which is more or less the same as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's the ocean of devotion. Sindhu means ocean. Yeah. And also for your interest, for those who might have a hard copy, it might, if you go to the back, or you go to page 409, if you happen to have this edition, I guess, 409, it gives you an overview of the book. So it's the nectar of devotion, yeah, the waves of devotion. So the book is grouped into 4 waves. Okay, you got the eastern wave, southern, the eastern side of the ocean, the southern side, the western side, and the northern side. Okay, now in our study for Bhakti Sastri, as instructed by Prabhupada, we're just going to cover the eastern wave or the eastern side. Yeah, and that's divided. Yeah, so the eastern side is divided into 4 waves. All right, so get ready to swim around in the waves of devotion. Yeah, so those 4. For the first wave is a general definition of bhakti. So that's devotional service in general. That's in Sanskrit. Samanya bhakti. Then the second wave is sadhana. So that's sadhana bhakti. So it's devotional service in practice. So that's what we're doing. We're practicing to be devotees. We are apprentices. So sadhana bhakti. And then the third wave is bhava bhakti. And the fourth wave is prema bhakti. Okay? So that's what we're going to be covering. It covers from chapters 1 to 19. Okay, so a general overview, sadhana, bhava, and prema. Okay. Also, having said that, one we will get introduction to bhava and introduction to prema. Yeah. And then the other sides of the ocean, you may read that as you're inspired in your own time. I actually have a separate seminar presentation on the rest of the nectar of devotion. So it's very interesting. So yeah, something else I was going to bring up then, forgot. Yeah, okay. All right. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. I've got to check the chat. Okay, so yeah, okay. So some of you might know some history of Rupa Goswami. He's known as the chief of the Goswamis. And interesting, I heard just yesterday, I was listening to a lecture on this preface by one devotee, Chaitanya Charan, and he's mentioned something I'd never knew before, which I thought was very interesting. Sanatana Goswami is actually the elder of the Goswamis, and he's revered by Rupa Goswami as senior in that regard. But also you might hear that the chief of the Goswamis also is mentioned Rupa Goswami. And the reason that is because Rupa Goswami was the first one to renounce everything. It's a wonderful story, and we'll cover that a little bit. he was the first to renounce and join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And thereon after that, he was joined by the other Goswamis. So in that sense, he's seen as the chief of the Goswamis. Yeah. And as we know, one of the instructions given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa and Sanatan and the other Goswamis was to was to write books, was to establish again the pastime places in Vrindavan, and also to establish temples. So Rupa Goswami, he established the Radha Govinda temple in Vrindavan, and you can see the picture here. I think my cursor's, hopefully you can see my cursor. So there's a whole history to that. Some of you might know that history. It's a magnificent temple. If you go there in Vrindavan, it's just magnificent. It was, there were more stories above, but they was dismantled by envy. But it's still awe-inspiring to actually go there. And the deities of Rupa Goswami, Radha Govinda, are now in Jaipur. You can, I'm sure some of you have taken darshan, have been to Jaipur. So there. Now, when Lord Chaitanya, when he first met Rupa Goswami, he was engaged as a minister. And I was hearing some more interesting details about that as well. Rupa Goswami's name was Dabira Kasha, a Muslim name. And Sanat Goswami's name was Sakada Malik. Now they came from a Sarasat Brahmin family. So Sarasat Brahmins are those Brahmins which were living close to the Sarasati River. And they're renowned as being priests and scholars. Yeah. But subsequently, the Sarasati River dried up at some point. So then the Sarasat Brahmins, a lot of them moved to different parts of India, but they're considered to be one of the highest Brahminical castes, the Sarasat Brahmins. Yeah, so they came from such a background. And they was more or less coerced or forced to take up a position in the government. And they was threatened by the Muslim ruler that if you do not take up this service which is required, then we're going to cause a lot of grief and a lot of anxiety for your Brahmin community. Yeah. But interesting is that Rupa and Sanatan, although they had their names changed and they considered themselves fallen from the Brahminical status, they actually was allowed to continue their worship. So there's a place in India called Ramakeli, and Rupa and Sanatan, I think they were both there, and they established like a Gupta Vrindavan. And they would regularly, although they were engaged in the service of the government, they was at the same time continuing to hear Shrimad Bhagavatam, and they established like a hidden Vrindavan in a place called Ramakeli. Yeah. So although they were actually rejected by caste brahmanas, by a lot of the brahmanas, but they still continued their attraction and pure devotion. Yeah. And now they heard about Lord Chaitanya before they actually met him. Yeah. Now there's a whole history. We won't go into all the details of it, but you know, Sanat Goswami, he was imprisoned for threatening to leave government office by Hussein Shah. Now he later joined Lord Chaitanya. There's a whole wonderful history there, and he divided his wealth. They were very wealthy, and Sanat Goswami divided his wealth and he gave it away basically, more or less. He gave 50% to sadhus, he gave 25% to relatives, and 25% he kept for any emergencies that might be there. And it's that emergency funds that Rupa Goswami used to bribe his way out of jail as well. And then he joined, Rupa Goswami joined first Lord Chaitanya, and then Sanatana Goswami came after, as we mentioned. Yeah. Now, you
There is
see
a
that.
hand up.
Sorry?
There is a question, I think, from
Please,
Sachin.
yeah, you have to go ahead, Sachikamar. Thank you for bringing my attention to that. Yes.
Yes, Prabhu, I was just following along as you were saying there, but this question comes up quite often for me about um, because you were explaining there that by caste they were Brahmins, and then because they were uh,
Associate.
employed
Yeah.
in the service of the government, then they weren't considered Brahmin.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, this question comes up like when when we as devotees, um, is it based on our vocation, on our like how because I think there are a lot of devotees who have second initiation, um, and maybe that's the thing, that maybe it's a sacred thread rather than a Brahminical thread, but second initiation, but they might be engaged in, according to Varna and Ashram, what might be considered Shudra or Vaishya or other things that are not Brahminical. I think the point is clear. I don't know if it's clear
No,
what I'm
well,
asking
it's
there.
clear. Now, it's a work in progress, and different senior devotees are dealing with this in different ways. Because what Sachikamar Nimai he's bringing out is that a Brahmin does not accept he does not work for anyone. He's considered to be a Brahmin. He's not considered to be a Brahmin. So a Brahmin is independent. Yeah, he doesn't work for anyone. But we see, practically speaking, devotees in our ISKCON society who have Brahmin initiation. They may be working in banks. They have so many different occupations, but they're Brahmins. Yeah. So does that mean their Brahmin status is null and void? Yeah. So as I said, it's a work in progress. In a established society, in a Varnashram society, it would be easy to arrange oneself, but we are not functioning under the auspices of a Varnashram society. Very much not. So therefore, there's compromise according to need, yeah, according to the society that we are in. Yeah. For instance, if all those who are Brahmin didn't work for someone and instead depended on donations, they might find it difficult. Yeah. But there are, for instance, it's interesting, as I say, it's a work in progress. Different senior devotees are, dealing with this in different ways and seeing how to go forward. It's a big conversation. We won't open it up right here now. But for your interest, Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, he he does not give his disciples Brahman initiation if they are employed. So he's in his own way, with amongst his disciples, he is trying to establish that aspect of Varnashram. Okay, and as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of discussion on that, whether he's doing right or wrong, you know. But so you get the idea. Yes. So ideally that is the case, but practically speaking, in living in the world today, for devotee, especially if a Brahmin has family and children and etc., then they have to do what they need to maintain their family, and unfortunately, it may mean taking employment. Is that okay? But for your interest, Bhakti Vikash Maharaj he's trying to establish that aspect, which I think is interesting, but it can be a bit controversial as well.
What if you're self-employed?
Yourself, yeah, that's more along the lines of Brahmin. It means you're in charge of yourself. So that's an option. Self-employed, you're working for yourself. Yeah, that's more, in one sense, you could say along the lines of what's expected of a Brahmin, more than working for someone. So some devotees, I mean, I know some devotees, they're Brahmins and they do work for themselves and they have their own business. Yeah. But please don't feel disheartened if you have Brahmin initiation and you're working in the post office. Don't condemn yourself. You have to, the most important thing is that we should maintain a environment, a place to live where we can be peaceful and practice Krishna consciousness. Now, as our society develops over the next 150 years, then we might see more structure. We might manifest into a society where we can structure it accordingly, rather than just a collection of temples, which we are at present. Okay? So that's the whole
self-employment should be Vaishya, more towards Vaishya than Brahmin.
Yeah, so you could say Vaishya is being self-employed a Vaishya. I mean, I think more, let's look at it self-employed by being independent. Yeah, one is not dependent on someone else. Yeah. Now, a Brahmin by nature, they will get, traditionally, they will get their income from donations, from their Brahminical activities. So even, Pucho's bringing up the point, even being self-employed doesn't fit the bill exactly according to the Vedic principles, But at least it's something, at least you're working for yourself. So it's a bit more in that line. You're not actually, Prabhupada says if you read in some of his purports, he speaks quite strongly on this. He brings out that if one works for someone else, then one is considered to be a dog. All right. So you're going to see that in Prabhupada's books. You're going to see the presentation of the ideal Vedic culture. Yeah. And the application of that is a work in progress in our international society. Yeah. So we have to be mature in understanding and applying these principles, Is that okay, Pacho? Thank you for bringing that point out. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, the point here that Prabhupada brings out in the preface, you can read there. You see that he elevated who was so-called fallen from Brahminical society to the highest status of a Goswami. Yeah. So that's the highest Brahminical status is a Goswami. So he gave them that position and gave them that honor, Rupa and Sanatan. The same as he did with Haridas Thakur. So Prabhupada brings this out in the preface. So he mentions that this is the universal principle of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is misrepresented sometimes as being someone who revolutionized social principles in everyone. He sometimes is misrepresented as being against the social system by elevating lowborns to Goswamis. But it's not exactly the point. Yeah. What he did, he's made available Krishna consciousness to everyone, regardless of caste or regardless of position in a Vedic society. And that's very much shown by his honor. He's honoring Haridas Thakur. That's a whole wonderful pastime. And raising Rupa and Sanatan, actually, from a social point of view, from being the highest, being Goswamis. Yeah. So this is what's brought out. So the universal principle of elevating everyone to an unadulterated servant of the Lord. Yeah. So this is the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the universal principle. And Prabhupada mentions in the preface there that our Krishna conscious movement is based on the authority of Rupa Goswami. Based on this principle, but it's based on the teaching specifically of Rupa Goswami. Yeah. And so therefore, Prabhupada mentions, therefore, we are known as, anyone know what word's going to come next? We are known as?
Rupa Magnus?
Rupa Nugas. Our temple commander, Rupa Nuga. Yeah. So we are known as Rupa Nugas. So it means we followers of Rupa Goswami. Now we give more details on that and the significance of that. That will come out as we're going through our study here, okay? But just for now, we are known technically as followers of Rupa Goswami. Yeah. And the details of that will become evident, Okay. Let me see. So one thing I would like to do, but I don't have time for, I would like to do, I find history, Vaishnav history, very fascinating. I would like, if I had the time, I would like to do a study on it, on Vaishnav history. It's quite very interesting, But Hare Krishna. All right. So then Prabhupada, he gives a basic definition of bhakti. So it means devotional service. And that's very specific. That will come out when we discuss the verse, Anyabhalasata Sunyam. So it's not just devotion. There is activity. So that's devotional service. There is an expression of one's appreciation to Krishna, which is expressed through seva, expressed through service. Yeah. So bhakti means devotional service. Yeah. So, and then Prabhupada brings out here the basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. Yeah. No one can live without loving someone else. Okay. Sorry, I got a mundane song going through my head now. Everybody needs someone to love. Dun, dun, dun. Hopefully you don't recognize that song. Yeah. But this is a principle we have to, isn't it, as a universal principle. This is life, everyone's, yeah. And the general propensity is to have affection for someone. Yeah. So everyone's looking for that. Of course, in the material world, often that meets with disappointment, yeah, which can lead to being pessimistic that it can ever be found in this world, because people are trying to find it on the material platform. Yeah. But that's the basic point which Nectar Devotion is teaching, what's here in the preface, is that everyone is looking for this propensity to love someone. Yeah. And then he mentions here, in a primary stage, a child loves his parents, then his brothers and sisters. And as he daily grows up, he begins to love his family. So it expands. So it's expanding. Yeah. So first there's affection for the parents. Then that love expands further. Affection and appreciation for brothers and sisters. As he grows up, that loving propensity goes from family to society, to community, and to country, and then nation. Yeah? And then eventually some people may expand that affection to love all of human society. Yeah? But still, that, let's just finish, but the loving propensity is not satisfied even by loving all human society. Yeah? So some people, it's good, they live by this principle, they see the anomalies, or they see the wars, and they see the intense differences between different races and different countries, and they take on this worthy, you could say, idea of loving all humanity. Yeah. But it's somewhat artificial. It's good in one sense, but it can really only be done when one expands, when one learns to love Krishna. This is the point. If you learn to love Krishna, you will automatically have affection for everyone. Yeah. And it won't be a mental exercise. It will be a manifestation of your purified self. Yeah. Because everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. So if you learn to love Krishna, then, like here, the Nectar Devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities by the easy method of loving Krishna. Right? So if you want to develop this philanthropic this all-encompassing appreciation of everyone, regardless of whether they're Palestinian, an Israeli, or Russian, or Ukrainian, or whether they support Liverpool or West Ham, or whether they in India, or whatever it may be. If we want to break down these barriers and have affection for everyone, then that comes from loving Krishna. Yeah, everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. Yeah. So Prabhupada mentions it as that this loving propensity expands, but it doesn't find full satisfaction on the material platform. Yeah, Prabhupada it mentions that this loving propensity expands like a beam of light. Yeah, but we're instructed, Rupa Goswami, to learn to love Krishna. Yeah, so Prabhupada he mentions here. Just quote. It's not on the slide here, but the nectar of devotion will teach us how to turn one switch. Okay, one switch, click, that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. So this will be mentioned as one of the symptoms of sadhana bhakti. It creates auspiciousness. So one's life will become auspicious. One will see goodness in the world. Yeah. So one will turn the one switch that will brighten everything everywhere. Yeah. And if you don't know this, you're missing the point of life. You've missed the point of the human form of life. Prabhupada mentions that. Yeah. And then Prabhupada brings out, again, we're still on the preface, brings out this term rasa, now bhakti, rasmrita, sindhu. So this term, we're going to be using it quite a bit in our study. Rasa is one of those Sanskrit terms which is kind of difficult to give an exact translation into English. But Prabhupada quotes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, who translated it as mellow. And Prabhupada followed that as like a taste. Now, if you really understand the full purport of rasa, it's a lot more than that. But just for now, it's just trying to answer a certain experience that one experiences within the subtle self. Okay? Prabhupada says, the word rasa used in Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu is understood by different persons differently, because the exact English equivalent is very difficult to find. But our spiritual master has translated the word into mellow, so we shall follow in his footsteps and give translation in that way. So literally, let's try it. Rasa means a juice, it means a mellow, a type of experience. Yeah. So mellow, it means a sweet or fully flavored fruit. Yeah, sweet or fully flavored ripeness of a fruit. So that's mellow. It's a taste of a kind of, you can say, just for now, it's a specific experience. It's a taste that's contained within juice. Now, if we look at here, relationships for now compared to fruits. So the pleasure we taste in these relationships is the mellow or the rasa. You follow? So there's a specific rasa. If you eat a mango, there's a specific rasa, specific taste. If you eat a pineapple, specific rasa, specific mellow. Now, in relationships, there's a specific rasa, the specific mellow, which can be experienced. Yeah. So a specific, now that rasa, that attracts us to a certain relationship, and we endeavor to enjoy that rasa. Yeah. And Prabhupada mentions here, driven by affection for his wife and children, a family driven by affection. So affection is rasa. It's a emotion. So he's driven by that emotion of affection, rasa. He he works day and night. He may work day and night, yeah, or well into the night. Yeah, and a philanthropist. Yeah, this is here, some pictures here. So he works in the same way for the love of the greater family. Yeah, so for your Pacific family, for the greater family of mankind. So he's doing, there's a certain experience that one has from actually doing that, a sense of well-being, a certain emotion. Yeah. So then, some protest going on here. then a nationalist. This looks more like a rasa of what's the word? A virya rasa. Not so sweet. But they're feeling for their country. Isn't it? Some people really get emotional for their country, isn't it? I mean, they die. Some people will die for their country. Die. There's so much rasa, so much feeling, for the nationalist. So what's going on, it's a kind of mellow, yeah, as an experience of emotion there, yeah. Then Prabhupada brings out there's two kinds of tastes. One is the bhakti rasa. So that's in relation, that's what we experience in relationship as one is serving Krishna. And then we have the mundane rasa. So we got these two. Prabhupada brings this out. You got the bhakti rasa and the mundane rasa. Then he's making a correlation between the two. Yeah. So which one is the best? Yeah, he brings that. So I think we know, hopefully, which one's the best. Yeah. So he brings this out. So bhakti rasa is the incalculable superior taste. Yeah. So it's superior to the subtle or sense gratification, gross and subtle. Yeah. Even Prabhupada mentions it's superior even to moksha or spiritual emancipation. Now and then he quotes here. Then Rupa Goswami quotes, if Brahmananda, or the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, is multiplied by 1,000,000,000,000 fold. So just try and picture that, 1,000,000,000,000 fold. If the happiness of Brahmananda, which is far beyond any happiness to be experienced on a material plane, if that happiness of Brahmananda is multiplied 1,000,000,000,000 fold, that cannot be compared to one atomic fraction of the happiness derived from the ocean of devotional service. Okay, especially at the levels of bhava and prema. Okay, so pretty far out, isn't it? So that rasa, comparing the bhakti rasa to the mundane rasa. There's something in the chat here. Let me just open it up. You mentioned that Rupa Goswami and Sanat Goswami were able to hear Srimad Bhagavatam during that time. How was the Bhagavatam preserved during that time? Well, it's handed down from spiritual master to disciple through hearing, generally. Yeah? And then at some point it also was written down over time, but generally through reception, through hearing. Is that okay? So back here again. Yeah, and then Prabhupada is going to bring out here, then he brings out other problems with the mundane rasa. He brings out, I think it's you'll see one of your questions I saw there. Please give a definition of Bhoga Trayag and Chapala Sukha. Yeah. So Bhoga Trayag is the, Bhoga means enjoyment and Trayag means to renounce. So one oscillates between the two. So for example, you may enjoy eating a gulab jamun and you're enjoying a mellow there. You're enjoying a rasa there and you like eating it. I mean, you like the sensation, you like the taste of it, you like what happens to the gulab jamun in your mouth. You like the lingering taste of rose water. You like the sugar. But if you eat, you eat one, you're enjoying, then you eat two, then you eat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, then you're going to become a bit renounced. Yeah, you're going to triag. No more, no more for me. Yeah, you're going to renounce it. Sometimes, some time ago, they had a gulab jamun eating contest with the brahmacharis here. One of them ate, I think, 35 gulab jamuns. How that's possible, I don't know. But he became very renounced of he became very renounced of gulab jamuns after that. He couldn't eat one more. So this is material life. One time we're enjoying something, like a person starts drinking. They start drinking, they feel a bit loose in character. They feel, they become intoxicated. They forget about the anxieties that they're dealing with, and they like the experience and etc. And they, then they drink more, then they drink more, then they start suffering. There can be physical side effects from it, and various other side effects. One waste one's mind, etc., etc. And then but that's another subject we'll bring up. Then they want to become renounced from it, but sometimes they can't. And that we're going to speak about as well. But you get this principle. This is material life, Bhoga Trayag. Yeah, one time really enjoying something, next time just dropping it. It's no good. Yeah. And then he brings out Chapala Sukha. This is from one bhajan by one Vaishnava. Anyone know the name of this Vaishnava? It's not Noatram, it's Chapala Hare Bhajuhure Mana Shinanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Vindure. So this is compared.
By Govind Das.
Yeah, Govinda Das. Very beautiful bhajan. Yeah, we know of that. So Chapala Sukha. So it's very flickering. Yeah, Chapala means flickering. Sukha means happiness. Yeah. It's very insignificant. It's very ephemeral. It's very external. It's not deep at all. It's very flickering. Yeah. This is material life, so-called material rasa. It's very external. It's very flickering. It's very short as well. Chapala Sukha. So it's flickering and it's temporary. Yeah. And even if you manage to set yourself up materially where you're getting some sense of happiness from your life arranged in a mode of goodness, maybe, still death's going to take it all away. Yeah. It's all going to come to an end at some point. Then so Prabhupada's bringing out this superiority of bhakti rasa over the mundane rasa, but he contrasts the two. Yeah. And he brings out also that the natural bhakti rasa is a natural identification of the soul. And that rasa, that experience, it continues without end and eventually without oscillation. Yeah, without oscillation, and it continues without end. Even death cannot take away your experience of your loving relationship with Krishna. It cannot take it away. You just continue in your next life. So that's the bhakti rasa. Yeah. And then I probably won't read all of these here. Got a few quotes from the preface. I'll read perhaps one or two. Yeah, well, Prabhupada brings up here, I'll just paraphrase it perhaps. Mundane workers, they work day and night to get this rasa. Yeah. A businessman, he works the whole week, then he's got to get out. He's got to get out of the city, man. He's got to get out for the weekend, So he's apt to change his position. Yeah. Yeah, this change is going on perpetually. This is Bhoga Trayag, and we cannot be happy in either state. Because our eternal, actually, constitution position is experiencing this rasa with Krishna. So everything else is chapala sukha. Everything else is just temporary. Yeah. And then Prabhupada mentions here, as he often does in other places, he mentions that death, this point, it proves that death takes everything away. Yeah, death is a big monster which smashes everything to pieces in your life, you know. Is coming. Yeah. So he mentions this is the death is the representative of God for the atheistic class of men. Yeah. You know, they think they're in control, they think they got some control, they're the master. Then at the time of death, it becomes painfully obvious that they are controlled and they're being led somewhere they cannot do anything about. So they have this profound realization of the power of the material energy, yeah, over them. Yeah. And they have no choice. They have to die. Quite graphic, isn't it? So Prabhupada, he mentions the devotees realize the presence of God. How do we realize the presence of God? By devotional service. Yeah. The atheist realizes the presence of God in the shape of death. Yeah. Then he mentions they start a new chapter somewhere in the world, higher or lower. Yeah. So Bhakti Rasa is not like that. Okay. Well, I've got some quotes here. Here we are. We've already covered some of this. Yeah. So it continues perpetually. Therefore, it's called Amrita. So Amrita, it means the taste is always tasty. Amrita. Yeah. It exists eternally. So this is the subject matter of the nectar of devotion. Yeah. So the activities of bhakti are Amrita or permanent. Yeah. And Prabhupada, so I think this is a question I glanced as well. Here is the eternal engagement bhakti rasa can be understood by the serious student. So what can be understood from studying nectar of devotion? Yeah. Understood by the serious student upon studying the nectar of devotion. So that's what we want to realize and appreciate in this study. Okay. And here, Prabhupada brings up this example, comes from the Bhagavatam, Yatata Molena Nishtanena Tribyanti Diskanda Pusha Pashaka. Yeah, the nectar devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple, okay, devotion is simple, and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it's very easily to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. We covered that, but here's the specific quote. Okay. Yeah, watering the root of the tree. Yes. As far as material necessities are concerned, the human civilization at the present moment is very much advanced in living comfortably, but still we are not happy because we are missing the point. Yeah. So Prabhupada here, he mentions he's calling out. He says, I'm appealing herewith to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the nectar devotion. I am sure that the fire of material existence burning within their hearts will be immediately extinguished. Yeah. So this is Prabhupada's mood, mission, Prabhupada's mood and mission to give this to people in general. Yeah. Then who is the nectar devotion presented? Who is the nectar devotion for? So it's not for the non-devotee, it's for the devotees. Okay. I think this is one book that generally is not distributed on the street. Although Krishna book is, Prabhupada gave, he asked that be distributed and other books, but this book is generally not. The nectar devotion, I'm sure some devotees will distribute it, but here, why not? Because it's meant for those who engage in the Krishna conscious movement. Actually, I remember before I joined the temple, I got nectar devotion in the post. You know, couldn't understand a word of it, but I like the pictures. You know, yeah. But so it's for those who are engaged in Krishna conscious movement. So it's for us. Okay, we're engaged in Krishna conscious. Prabhupada wrote it for us, and he signs it in 1970. Yeah, and what was the then headquarters of ISKCON was in Los Angeles. Yeah, still there. That temple's still there. Okay, so that's the preface. Any questions or comments out there? Interesting to hear about, isn't it? It's inspiring. Hopefully, it's inspired us to go forward. Okay, 1 second.
Oh, uh, I was just wondering.
Sure, yeah.
So you were explaining the meaning of the word rasa and how it is explained by the acharyas. I was just wondering that, so like this word is well understood in a physical context, the way you were explaining the meaning juice. For example, we use rasa in the sweet sense. But
Yeah.
is it just a word which is being used for us to make us understand what a spiritual emotional pleasure would mean?
Yeah,
Or
once I just want to. Yeah, because it is because rasa actually means it means all the different bhavas actually in the full devotional expression of the term. Rasa means one stahi bhav, sanchari bhav, vyapachari bhav, you know. One is when if one is establishing rasa, they're establishing a specific relationship to Krishna. One specific relationship is called Stahi Bhav. That's called the king of, because everything is based on that. And that's described, that will be touched on, I think, a little bit, but that's described in the rest of the rest of the nectar of devotion. But then there's different devotional ecstasies that one experiences within that specific Stahi Bhav rasa. So, for example, Mother Yasoda's Stahi Bhav is parental affection. So that's her rasa. So so that has a full manifestation of different symptoms that come. For instance, when Krishna's life is in danger from being entangled in the coils of Kaliya, she experiences the full manifestation of her rasa, her stahibhav becomes powerfully manifest in different ecstasies or different emotions. So that's the real rasa. Okay. So, but we're getting, so that's why it's difficult to translate exactly into English because it
yeah,
depends on one's relationship with Krishna.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my understanding is they are deliberately using this word to explain something which would be tough to otherwise understand, but it will
Yeah.
be yet relatable.
Yeah. So that comes, we're studying chapters 1 to 19. The full manifestation of rasa will be, and it's in according to specific relationship with Krishna, will be explained in the rest of the nectar devotion. And then further on that, a more elaborate, the most definitive or the most expressive rasa is Madhurya Ras. Madhurya Rasa. And that's a whole separate book that Rupa Goswami writes as a part 2 of the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu called Ujvala Nilamani, which is all about the different moods and rasas of the gopis. So to translate that into English in a simple term is not so easy. So for our understanding, in order to get a foot and a comprehension of it, Bhaktisiddhanta described it as mellow. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, did that answer the question?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we go into the introduction? So if you have your,
Yes, Prabhu. I think Purna
ahead.
Kishore has hand up.
Please, yeah, okay, I should look. Yeah, I can't. Please go ahead.
Oh, so is it? I think I read somewhere that the rasas in the mundane rasas are reflections or perversions of the real rasas in the spiritual world. Is that
Yeah, Janmadiya Shayata. So what you see here has its pure form in the spiritual world. Yeah, you have the relationship between girlfriend and boyfriend, between mother, servants and the master, etc. That's all has its pure, unadulterated expression in the spiritual world. Yes, correct. Yeah. Here, everything's limited, everything's temporary. Yeah. So it's there, but it's all of a material nature because it's within the jurisdiction of matter. So therefore, it's yeah, it's not the full manifestation. But yes, correct. Yeah. So okay. Yeah, you have to say yes if that's okay. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Sorry, I just did lift my hand. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Let's let me just move something around here on my screen. 1 second. Oh, let's leave that. Okay. Now, Prabhupada, in his Nectar of Devotion, he summarizes the verses. Now, if you read the Bhakti Smriti Sindhu, you'll see that specifically it's presented in verses, yeah, with explanation given, yeah. But Prabhupada, again, he's doing a summary study, yeah. So he will not, he will not specifically mention the verses, but he will be paraphrasing the verses. Yeah. And if you study Nectar Bhakti Smriti Sindhu, you can see those specific verses. Yeah. Now, in the introduction, so he mentions here the first verse of Bhakti Smriti Sindhu defines the book's objective. Yeah. Lord Krishna, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the reservoir of all rasas. Akila Rasamrita Murti. He is the full manifestation of full unadulterated emotion or rasa with his devotees. Yeah. So we're covered that. We're going to speak a little bit about that a little bit later, just as an introductory slide. Okay. So now the introduction, Rupa Goswami gives us a, well, I think Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that a Mangala Charan. So you'll see, Prabhupada, if you have the book there, Nectar Devotion, you'll see on the page of introduction, it said, invoking auspiciousness. Yeah. So this is an aspect of Mangala Charan. Yeah. So offering benedictions. There's 3 aspects of a Mangala Charan, which Krishnadas Kaviraj mentions. One, it defines a book's objective. Yeah. It offers obeisances and offers benedictions. Okay. Now, the first 6 verses that Prabhupada paraphrases in Bhakti Smriti Sindhu, this is Rupa Goswami's Mangala Charan. And the verses coincide with the paragraphs. So if you look, if you have your copy there, the first paragraph is as follows. And I can, does anyone have a copy there with them of the Nectar Devotion? Yeah, someone could read. It'd be good to hear someone else's voice apart from mine. Just read the first paragraph. You could just unmute and read.
Introduction.
Yeah, go ahead, Mob.
Yeah. Invoking auspiciousness. Lord Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the reservoir of all rasas or relationships, which are called neutrality, passive adoration, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, conjugal love, comedy, compassion, fear, chivalry, ghastliness, wonder, and devastation. He is the supreme attractive form, and by his universal and transcendental attractive features, he has captivated all the gopis, headed by Taraka, Palika, Shyama, Lalita, and ultimately Srimati Radharani. Let his lordship's grace be on us so that there may not be any hindrance in the execution of this duty of writing the nectar of devotion. Impelled by his divine grace, Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Yeah, so this is Prabhupada's introductory. He's speaking on the first verse. So this is Akila Rasmrita Murti. The verse you will see in the Sanskrit, it has this Akila Rasamrita Murti. Now there's so Krishna is the reservoir of all rasa. Yeah. So all emotion, all expression is actually originally there in Krishna in his relationship with his devotees. So in that sense, Krishna is Akila Rasamrita Murti. He is the most lovable personality. So that's what's most appreciated by the bhakta of Krishna, is his Akila Rasamrita Murti. And that's more profound than his being God or his majesty or his authority as being the supreme personality of Godhead. So this is what Rupa Goswami is bringing out, that the highest manifestation and the most wondrous manifestation of God actually is his lovable personality and his exchanges of rasa. Yeah, that's why Krishna is known. We have this little pamphlet called Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. So Krishna, the Reservoir of Rasa. And interesting, you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Adi Leela that Prabhupada, he gives a comparison, you might have heard this, where he's comparing Lord Narayan to a high court judge. Yeah. So he has a position. He's a powerful figure in a courtroom. But when he's in the privacy of his own home, is his personality fully manifest? Yeah. Like his children or grandchildren will exchange with him in a certain way that may not be seen or known within the courtroom. But that's actually his full manifestation. I think Prabhupada gives the example of Prime Minister Gladstone. You may have heard this example, where one ambassador had an appointment to meet the Prime Minister, but he was told to wait. He went at the right time, but he was told to wait. So he's waiting outside the office 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm not exactly sure the right time, but he was waiting some time. And at some point he became a bit impatient because he could hear noises in the room. So he was bold and he knocked on the door and he opened a room, and there was the grandson of Prime Minister Gladstone was riding on his back, and playing horsey. So Prabhupada gives that example. This is the Prime Minister when he's not in office. Yeah. So Prabhupada mentions like a high court judge. So this is Krishna, and this is what Nectar Devotion is presenting in great detail. Yeah. So we have this picture of Lord Narayan here. So he's in the creationary role. Yeah. So he's worshipped with awe and reverence. Yeah. Now when he's at home, he wonderfully manifests his sweet personality and rasa. So therefore, that's why Rupa Goswami, he's using this term. He addresses Vrindavan Krishna as Akila Rasamrita Murti. This is the objective of Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. This is what he's speaking about. It's not, in that sense, it's different from the Upanishad. Wait, I had to take a note of this. It's different from Bhagavad Gita. It's different from Upanishads. It's different from the Vedas. It's really specifically speaking about the actual personality of Krishna. Yeah. And as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that's our worshipful Lord. So we are known as Rupanugas. Okay. All right, so Akila Rasmrita Murti. Yeah. And a bit some details here. Mention Krishna is the attractor of the gopis in this first paragraph. It's his features that have attracted all the gopis. Yeah, his loving features, headed by and then some gopis are named: Tadaka, Palaka, Shama, Lalita, and ultimately Prabhupada mentions, of course, we know Srimati Radharani. Now, for your interest, this won't be a question you'll be asked in an exam, so don't worry. But, well, it might be, but I don't think so. Okay, so Rupa Goswami gives 5 different groups of gopis. So these are different group leaders of gopis, yeah? Talika, Palika, Shama, Lalita, and Srimati Radharani. So they have different intensities of affection for Krishna. Yeah. So, and he mentions, yeah. So he actually controls, he subjugates by his attractive features, Talika and Palika. Talika and Palika. He absorbs Shama and Lalita and brings them into his own intimate circle. But with Radharani, he is submissive. He doesn't control. He is controlled. And that comes out when we discussed about the 2 characteristics of prema. Okay? So Radharani is dearest to Krishna. He becomes submissive, very submissive to Radha. Yeah. So therefore, she is the Gaudiya Vaishnavas worship her. Yeah. They worship her. Yeah. It's said that we are the International Society for Radha Consciousness. Actually, that's the inside information. Because, she has such love for Krishna. Anyway, that's a whole different subject. Okay. So Krishna, the lover of Radharani, in essence, and reservoir of all rasa, is the object and goal of Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. Krishna, the lover of Radharani, and reservoir of all rasa. Yeah. And someone could read this as well. This is the 2nd paragraph, or part of it. You can read this here for us.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada and of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, by whose inspiration I have been engaged in the matter of compiling this summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is the sublime science of devotional service as propounded by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago in West Bengal, India, to propagate the movement of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, thank you. We probably won't have time to read every paragraph. So this is a particular verse that Prabhupada is paraphrasing. So Prabhupada, he follows Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is offering obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's interesting. It's interesting if you read the books of the Goswamis. Sometimes it's just a verse offering obeisances. Otherwise than that, Lord Chaitanya will not be mentioned in the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. Yeah, but he's offering obeisances, obviously, to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why? Because he taught him this Bhakti Rasa, he taught him this science of Bhakti, and he's inspired him to write about it. So obviously he's offering respects to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. Now, Prabhupada himself, he was instructed by his spiritual master. So therefore, he is offering respects to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami as well. Yeah. So both. So he adjusts this verse, and that's why, he's expressing his own specific sentiment in this regard, giving respects to his spiritual master. Yeah. That won't be there in the original Sanskrit. Yeah. So this is a summary study. Yeah. Yeah, it mentions, since I've been engaged in the matter of compiling this summary study of Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. Yeah. So he sticks quite close to the original text. Yeah. He sticks quite close. He mentioned this is a sublime science propounded by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he includes that, who appeared over 500 years ago. So this is from Rupa Goswami in West Bengal to propagate the Krishna conscious movement. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then we get to the next paragraph, or next verse. I'll read this one. Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the great devotees and acharyas, holy teachers, who are compared to sharks in the great ocean of nectar, who do not care for the various rivers of liberation. Yeah. So this is quite significant that Rupa Goswami here, he is presenting nectar or Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu here. He's given this analogy. Well, so there's 3 points to consider here, as it mentioned, see there in the slide. Now, sharks, they're normally found, they're not found in shallow water, okay? They're found in oceans. They're found in deep waters, yeah? So in that sense, so they're often not caught in the fisherman's net, and they only live in that ocean. So it's a wonderful example that he gives. Rupa Goswami writes this in a very poetic way. So in essence, sharks live only in the ocean, yeah. So they don't live anywhere lesser. So this is indicating that devotees always relish the ocean of devotion. Yeah, ultimately they learn to relish and be absorbed in the ocean of devotion, and in that way they're not attracted to any lesser pleasures. Yeah, the more devotees become practiced in relishing Krishna consciousness, the less they're attracted to the mundane pleasures of the world. So in that sense, sharks live only, they reject the rivers and they live in the ocean. Yeah. So in other words, also there's this common presentation of that the impersonalists will give, that as the rivers merge into the ocean, they actually lose their separate identity. They become one. So Rupa Goswami is bringing this out, that no, actually the devotees, they swim in the river of the ocean of devotion. They do not merge. Yeah. And I'll just read this here from the introduction. Impersonalists are very fond of merging into the Supreme, like rivers that come down and merge into the ocean. The fault in their argument, they fail to accurately distinguish the path of self-realization from the person who practices it. Okay? There's a person who's practicing that, and that is an eternal identity. Yeah. And so continuing, if the path of self-realization is like a river, then the person on the path is like a fish in the river, not the river itself. The river may merge with the ocean, but the fish in the river do not. They enter the ocean and they experience its variegated forms and entities. Then Prabhupada explains, the impersonalists are dwelling in the water river, which eventually comes to mix with the ocean. They have no information, however, that within the ocean, as within the river, all aquatic living entities. Okay? So you may have heard that example before. Another example is given, like when a green parrot flies into a green tree, then you cannot see the parrot anymore. But actually the parrot still has its identity. Yeah. So never natom eva chaduna sam natom nematunadipa nachevana bhavishamaha sava vayamata param. Krishna explains to Arjuna, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor these kings, nor in the future, so any of us cease to be. My Mayamamsa Jiva Loke, we are a Mayamamsa, we are always we are part and parcel of Krishna, we are Pacific manifest, we are part and parcel of Krishna, we never become one. So hopefully everyone here studying Nectar Devotion, and you've already done the Bhakti Sastri, you're already quite convinced about this, okay? So if you want, you could get if you meet someone on the street, or you meet a friend or relative who comes across with this impersonal philosophy, like the rivers merge into the ocean, you can say, well, we're like the sharks in the ocean, which always remain. We want to swim in the ocean of devotion. We do not want to lose our identity. So also, again, here, sharks are never caught in a fisherman's net. So basically, the net is birth and death. So as devotees dive into the ocean of devotion, they are not caught in the snares of birth and death. Yeah, so you can see it's a very poetic example that Srila Rupa Goswami is giving here. Yeah, they do not. We escape the net of birth and death. Yeah. Now, then Prabhupada he summarizes. Well, first, let's go back a bit here. Now, and there's in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami sees him in the 6th verse, which Prabhupada paraphrases, and we'll bring that out. He describes himself as incompetent. Yeah. So he's praying, he's in this mood of, he's been given a mission by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but within himself, he feels not qualified. He's not just saying flowery words, he feels incompetent. So this is the mood of a preacher, Prabhupada brings out. This is humility. And he's praying in that mood of humility to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. And Prabhupada brings this out as well. He brings it out himself. In this here, I'll just read here from the introduction itself. Okay, let me just read this such a command, then I come to your question. That should be the attitude of all preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement. Following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, we should never think ourselves as great preachers, but should always consider we are simply instrumental to the previous acharyas, and simply by following in their footsteps, we may be able to do something for the benefit of suffering humanity. Yeah, so this is the mood that Prabhupada was in. This is why he was empowered by Krishna to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. This mood of humility. Okay, so Rupa Goswami is describing himself as incompetent, and Prabhupada also is bringing this out in his own rendering of the verse. Yeah, we always see ourselves as instruments to the previous acharyas. Yeah. Sajgamar, Nimaipu, you had a question there? I saw.
You asked for us to remind you, Prabhu, when we get to 12
o'clock. Thank you. Well done. Okay, so it's 12:02. So let's get together again a couple of minutes past 10 past, yeah? Is that okay? Okay, see you in 10 minutes. So I let comments or questions. Recording in progress. So any questions or comments before we go on?
Prabhu, I didn't write down the second book that Rupa Goswami wrote on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
He didn't write it. Well, it's Udvala Nilamani. Udvala Nilamani. Yeah, it's about Madhurya Rasa. Yeah. Udvala Nilamani. That's a follow-up from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, it's not for first-time readers as well. All right. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we're happy with what we covered so far. You remember some points? Someone could just share something that we from what we went through in the preface in the beginning of the introduction. Some points that struck you. You can just unmute and say, "Oh yeah, I found that interesting."
If we don't find our eternal engagement using this book, we have missed the point of being a human.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, we missed it. We missed the point. It'd be such a shame, isn't it? Gets the end of life. We missed the point. Yeah. Anybody else? Let's have two more. Who wants to share something? You can, I guess I've got the slides here, but if you took notes.
There was mention there about the sharks swimming in the ocean. That they don't, they're not found in the rivers. Yeah.
Yeah, so where devotees swim, we are swimming in the ocean of devotion. Yes, like sharks. And one more? Someone could share something? Give me a simple point.
Story of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami, how they were like serving in as a Muslim court, and then they the Mahaprabhu gave them like Goswami status.
Yeah, very good. So that's a universal principle that is brought out. Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. All right. So now continuing in the introduction, yeah. There's this verse here, which Prabhupada paraphrases through the rest of the introduction. Yeah. And this is a well-known verse. Hopefully some of you may know of this verse already. It's one of the verses to learn. And here we have the diacritics. Anyabilasata shunyam gana kamari anavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, and fruitive action. Devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. Now, this is a very important verse. We could say this is the most important verse in the nectar of devotion, in the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. Yeah, it actually defines what is as described. Look, if you see the Uttam, what is actually pure devotional service? Because it needs definition. Because there's lots of misunderstandings, yeah, of what is actually Uttam Bhakti, what is pure devotion. Yeah. So Rupa Goswami is making it very clear. And as we look at this verse, you'll see in the details that he makes it very clear in this verse. Yeah. Difficult to give any other explanation of what is pure devotion. Yeah. So it's a good verse to learn, good verse to know. Yep. Now this also known as a Paribhasha Sutra. Yeah, this is given by Jiva Goswami. Now Prabhupada, he bases his explanation in this verse. He takes a lot from Jiva Goswami's commentary upon this verse. Yeah. So there Jiva Goswami mentions that this is the Paribhasha Sutra. So this is a statement in which an entire book is based and it's understood. If there seems to be any contradictory statements, then you go back to this verse and you understand that which seems to be difficult to understand. You understand it from the perspective of this verse, the Paribhasha Sutra. Sachin, you had.
Yeah, there's just a little interference in the sound, Prabhu. I'm just wondering.
I haven't touched anything different.
I'm just wondering. It might be that it looks like there are a couple of people who are not on mute. It might make a difference if they were on mute.
Yeah, please, devotees, if you can just press that mute button, unless you'd like to speak. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I guess it's a Paribhasha Sutra. So, for instance, the Paribhasha Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam is Eche Kamsa Kalapamsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indriyani Vyalokam Midogenti Yuge Yuge. Krishna and Balaram, they are the original personalities of Godhead. Yeah. So similarly, here in the Nectar Devotion, this is the verse by which we can properly understand all other statements made in the book. Yeah, so again, the rest of the introduction is dedicated to explaining this verse. So we're going to have a little look at it. We could go into more detail, but for now, we're just going to have an introductory look at this verse. So it consists of primary characteristics and secondary characteristics. Yeah. So primary characteristics is known as Surup Lakshan. Okay. The other one is Tatashta Lakshan. So the primary characteristics is mentioned in the last two. Interesting. The primary characteristics is in these two lines here. Anukulyena Krishnano Silanam Bhakti Uttama. Yeah. Interesting how it is. This is the last, not the first two lines, the second two lines. The primary characteristics on which the other is based upon. Okay, so please, if anything's not clear, please feel free to ask for any clarification, because we're getting into some details here. Okay. I heard a voice. Was that an unmuted accident voice, or?
I had a question about
Yeah.
About the main verse. When it says
Yeah.
yeah, devoid of fruitive action, are we talking about also karma yoga is prohibited there? If it's pure devotional service?
Yeah, we shall get there. We shall explain that.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
But more or less, yes.
Okay.
We'll explain that more when we get to it. Yeah. So this is so here's the primary characteristics. One, devotional service is for Krishna. Now it sounds obvious, but Rupa Goswami is making this statement based on context of history and misunderstandings of what is actually devotion. What is actually pure, what's the highest devotion? So some will say that devotion to Durga, devotion to Shiva, devotion to the ancestors. Yeah. But actually, Uttam Bhakti, the highest Bhakti, is given in Rupa Goswami as being very specific, that it actually means one's full tendency to be engaged in service to Krishna, serving the Lord favorably. So here is devotional service is for Krishna. So it's not for, as we mentioned, not for anybody else. So this is essential to understand. Yeah. So it may sound quite exclusive. What about the people around us? Can't we also love them? But we've covered that. No, actually, bhakti, or the relationship always with the soul, with the supreme soul, with Krishna. So devotional Uttam Bhakti is that which is directly for Krishna only. Yeah. But Prabhupada also explains that when we speak of Krishna, we shall speak also of his many expansions. So that's also known as devotion. Yeah. So Krishna's many expansions. For instance, we have next week we have the appearance of Lord Ram. Yeah. So so there's devotees of Lord Ram, and that's an expression of pure devotion. Okay. So Krishna and his expansions, his immediate expansions are the recipients of pure devotion, not the demigods, with due respect to the demigods. Yeah. This is actually definition of Uttam Bhakti. Yeah. Prabhupada explains that he is expanded, quote, he is expanded by expanded by his plenary parts and parcels, his differentiated parts and parcels, and his different energies. Yeah. So he mentions we have Baladev, Shankarshan, Vasudev, Aniruddha, etc., Ram, Nrsimha, and many incarnations. Yeah. So in that sense, these categories, in one sense, everything is within the domain of Krishna. So Krishna, in other words, means everything and includes everything. But But here, it's overly inclusive to say anything and everything is a valid recipient of pure devotion. All right? Although everything is a manifestation of Krishna, pure devotion flows directly towards Krishna. Now, Prabhupada paraphrases that here. Quote, generally, however, we should understand to mean Krishna, to mean Krishna and his personal expansions. Yeah. And you see, if you read there, Prabhupada later, he also includes Krishna's paraphernalia and his transcendental abode as objects of Uttam Bhakti. So, in conclusion, Krishna is the single target of Uttam Bhakti. It's actually Krishna. As a result of this one-pointed devotion to Krishna, one loves everything directly connected to him. Okay? So, Uttam Bhakti is devotional service to Krishna, which may include his expansions, Lord Nrsimhadev, Lord Ram, etc. Now, what's interesting is Rupa Goswami will establish that the highest expression of devotion in its utmost purest form is towards Krishna, the son of Mother Yasoda. Yeah, that Rupa Goswami will bring out as well. Okay. Now then we have the Anusilanam. Anusilanam. You see here, Anusilanam. I'm going to speak a bit about that. Any questions? Did we confuse anyone there? Did we confuse everyone? Did we confuse anyone? Everyone's clear, yeah? So Anusilana means it's an active engagement. I think we mentioned that in the beginning, in the definition of bhakti. It means devotional service. So it's an act. So Prabhupada says the actual word used by Rupa Goswami in this connection is anusilanam, or cultivation by following previous teachers. Yeah. So when we say cultivation, means there's some activity. Yeah. Without activity, just consciousness alone is not enough. There has to be expression, there has to be activity. So that's here. Devotional service is an active engagement. Yeah. And then Prabhupada mentions there's two aspects of this anusilanam. Anusilanam. Yeah. One is pravritti. Anyone knows what pravritti means? Yeah, go ahead, Purna Kishore.
Is it positive acts towards bhakti? I suppose nivritti is things that take you away from bhakti, negative.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So pravritti means activities that are favorable to Krishna consciousness. Yeah, like eating prashadam. Okay. And nivritti means unfavorable activities, like eating chips from the local chip shop. That's not favorable. Yeah, so there are ways to perform. So there are three. Now, there's three ways to perform these: pravritti and nivritti. This is more details given by Jiva Goswami for your interest. Yeah. Prabhupada mentions it as well. With body, mind, and words. Yeah. So easy from one perspective with the body, little, yeah, or with the words and then the mind. Yeah. So favorable thoughts, unfavorable thoughts, favorable words, unfavorable words. Yeah. Favorable activities with the body, paying obeisances, etc., and unfavorable activities. So it's quite a comprehensive. So this word, anusilanam, gives you quite a comprehensive understanding of the practice of devotional service. Okay, it includes pravritti and nivritti. Therefore, we have our regulative principles. Yeah, and then it gets into more detail. body, mind, and words. So it gets a bit more subtle. Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, again, Anusilanam. I've got people. So also mentioned, Prabhupada brings out here as well. So these poverty and nivriti, how they connect, how our activities connect to. So I'll ask that as a question. How can we specifically connect our activities to Krishna? Yes, Purnakushopu, I see your hand first.
We have to ensure that the enjoyer of all the activities ultimately is Krishna, not ourselves or our senses.
Yes, but I'm looking for another answer here. Let's try Satyakumar Nimai, Prabhu.
Well, one thought that came was through the mercy of the spiritual master to engage us in devotional service.
Yes, 10 points for Satyakumar Nimai. That's it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
About the assistance of the dislibic succession. So you see how Rupa Goswami has been very specific here. Once you study it, this anusilanam means you should be initiated into the parampara. Yeah. And that way your activities are connected to Krishna. Okay. So he mentions, so he indicates that with anusilanam means that which follows. So your activities follow the directions of the guru. Yeah, that's what makes it devotion. Yeah, makes it acceptable to Krishna. Yeah, so this is a characteristic of pure devotion. Yeah, it's focused on Krishna. The first point, devotion service is for Krishna. Yeah, and it's an active engagement, specifically pravritti and nivriti, and it's connected through the agency of the spiritual master. Yeah, so Prabhupada mentions here, those who follow Krishna are the Guru Parampara. One performs devotional activities by following a spiritual master who himself is following Guru Parampara, which is ultimately following the dictations of Krishna. In this way, one's own activities may connect to the transcendental desires of Krishna. So that's what spiritualizes our activities, is that it's connected to Krishna. Yeah. Now later, in later chapters, Rupa Goswami will speak about this. Guru Pad Ashraya, the important principles of bhakti, one being to take shelter of a spiritual master and to inquire from him. That's all part of executing pure devotional service. Yeah. Okay. And again, quote from Prabhupada, we can offer many services with our bodily activities, but all such activities must be in relationship with Krishna. This relationship is established by connecting oneself with a bona fide spiritual master who is the direct representative of Krishna in dislibic succession. Okay? And Rupa Goswami will speak about that more in chapters that are coming up. Okay? So another additional point here is that these devotional activities are actually under the internal energy of the Lord. So I think we mentioned that. So that's what's indicated by the prefix anu silanam, that these activities of Krishna consciousness are not mundane activities. They're completely spiritual. It may seem mundane from the mundane point of view. Yeah. For example, a devotee is driving a van. He's going to he's going on Food for Life. He's driving the van. So that is a spiritual activity because it's done under the direction of the spiritual master, fulfilling the desires of Prabhupada. It may not look spiritual to someone who doesn't know what's going on, but it is actually not part of the material world. Yeah. It's being done under the agency of the internal energy. Yeah, so Prabhupada says directly, all activities done in devotional service or in Krishna consciousness are directly under the control of the spiritual energy. Yeah. So in other words, the inspiration, you could say, to follow devotional service flows from Krishna, through Krishna's spiritual potency, flows down the disciplic succession, and is installed in the heart by the spiritual master. Yeah. By following a bona fide spiritual master, one links his or her energies and activities to the internal potency, and then spiritualization takes place. Yeah. So we should experience that we are becoming spiritualized by dovetailing our activities to Krishna. So anusilanam, anyabhilasana sunyam, jnana kamari anavritam, anukulyana Krishna silanam bhakti uttama. Okay. Any questions on that? It's quite interesting, isn't it, when you look into it a bit more closely. Yeah. And okay. Now there's another additional for your interest, this is coming from Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. I always find it interested to bring this out because it helps us to more have a broad understanding. Yeah. So it's very, so let me just go, sorry. Now we're speaking about this last point here now. Devotional service is executed with favorable intent. So it's very specific. It doesn't just say it's pleasing to Krishna. The intent should be favorable. And the reason that is mentioned because, for example, this is either Chanora or Mustika. Does anyone know who's wrestling with Krishna? Is it Chanora or Mustika? A test your Krishna book. Anyway, one of them, Chanora Mustika. So Krishna, he's Akila Rasamrita Murti. He enjoys rasa. And one of the rasas is Virya Rasa. Fighting. Yeah. So Krishna likes a fight. Yeah. Janmadiya Shayata. Yeah. So you could say, Mustika. Okay, let's say it's Mustika. So he's pleasing Krishna now. So because he's pleasing Krishna, is that devotional service? Is that pure devotional service? I think we know the answer. Someone could answer for us. He's pleasing.
I'm gonna assert that it's not, because it's not done favorably.
Yeah, that's the point. It's not, because he wants to kill Krishna. Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna. Yeah. Kamsa was fully absorbed in his Kamsa now. He's getting a bit worried, He knows he's next. Yeah, he was Krishna conscious. He was very Krishna conscious. Yeah. But unfavorable, uncool. Yeah. So pure ultimate bhakti means you're engaging your activities that are favorable to Krishna, not just pleasing. That's why Rupa Goswami has been very specific in every syllable of this verse. Yeah. Then it could be taken the other way. So it can be too broad. Here it could be too narrow. So the goal is to please Krishna. If that's pure devotional service, when Madhya Yasoda is not pleasing Krishna here, Krishna is so unpleased that he's crying. So does that mean Madhya Yasoda is not doing pure devotional service? Anyone could explain that? Quite simple. You can unmute and just go ahead. Krishna is not pleasing Madhya Yasoda. She's stressed out. She's having to run after him. She's got a stick in her hand. He's made a big mess. So she's not, so Krishna's running because he's scared.
This is loving exchange, but it's transcendental because there's love behind Mother Yasoda's actions. She's in that is it Vatsalya Rasa? No, sorry.
Yeah, that's basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's intended, yeah. So it's an expression, as we, let me just get rid of it. This Damodar Leela, as it is a wonderful Leela, is an expression of unadulterated devotion, where Mother Yasoda doesn't see Krishna as the all-pervading personality of Godhead. And she has such an exalted devotion to Krishna that she's praised. Yeah. And this is in Vrindavan, where the residents see Krishna, quote unquote, as the best boy in the village, but not God. Yeah. So this is the highest expression of devotion to Krishna. So therefore, so this here, devotional service executed with favorable intent. All right. So there's a couple of examples that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur broadens out to help us understand and appreciate this more. Okay. Again, we could speak more on this verse, but Prabhupada actually just gives, well, in one sense, he could write a whole book about this verse. I mean, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is a purport to this verse. But Prabhupada, for all intents and purposes, goes relatively short. He includes it in his introduction. Then its manifestation is throughout the whole of the nectar of devotion. So then we have these secondary characteristics, which is the first two lines, okay? Anyabhadasta sunyam, jnana kamari anavritam. Okay, so there's two aspects of it. Free of ulterior motive, yeah, and not covered by philosophical or fruitive pursuits. And I'll just quote from Prabhupada here. Prabhupada gives a summary here. Pure devotional service should be freed from the desire for any material benefit or for sense gratification. Yeah, all these desires are cultivated. They come from fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. So Prabhupada's summarizing both points here. In order to keep the purity of such Krishna conscious activities, one must be freed from material desires and philosophical speculation. Yeah, so we understand this principle. Nadanam najanam nasundanim kavatam bhadagadisha kame mama janmani janmanisvare bhagavat bhakti ahoiti tave. Right? Now, it doesn't stop one. It may not. Someone may be engaged in service to Krishna. There may be some material motive. So to that degree of material motive, then to that degree, one is covered. Yeah. Pure devotion is covered. Yeah. If one is serving Krishna in order to get something in reward or in return, from a higher perspective, it cannot actually be termed as devotion. Yeah. Actually, pure Uttama Bhakti, this verse is about Uttama Bhakti, one is just serving to please the spiritual master or to please Krishna. Yeah. Other than that, if there's some other motive, then the pure devotion is covered. Yeah. So as well as the activity is to be faithful to Krishna, pure devotion must be free from ulterior motive. Yeah. Not business transaction. Now it may be there in the beginning. Chato vidurba janti mam juna sikritit arjuna ati jignasi atati ganicha paradarshapa. We studied that in Bhagavad Gita. 4 types of persons come to Krishna, yeah? One who's in distress, one who's seeking knowledge, one who's inquisitive, one who's after some material prosperity. Yeah. They're coming to Krishna for that purpose. So they're not pure. But by coming to Krishna, that's another subject, one gets purified. And that purification happens by associating with the devotees of Krishna and hearing about the glories of pure devotion. Yeah. Purna Kishore Prabhu, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I thought by contrast, I think in the prayers of Queen Kunti, she's always looking for calamities, isn't she? So she can always doesn't get too comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
She's always then dependent on Krishna constantly and then thinking of him.
Yes, Vipadu Shashvat. Yeah, I mean, let alone praying to Krishna for something material, she's praying for calamities to come. It's good, yeah. Nice you brought it out. So why? Because whenever calamities come, then Krishna's there. Yeah, so that's the exalted position of Queen Kunti. Yeah. So this you'll see when you read Bhagavatam, you're going to see that Prahlad Maharaj, Queen Kunti, the Pandavas, etc., etc. Then we got Bali Maharaj, etc. Then you got Swayambhuva Manu, etc. Then you're going to, and ultimately the 10th canto. Their devotion is characterized like this: Anyabalasada Sunyam Gana Kamri Anablatam Anokulina Krishnanum Siddhanam Bhakti Uttama. So there's some transformation that happens for most because we come to Krishna, generally because we're in distress, maybe generally because we're after something. But then by coming to Krishna, by associating with devotees and taking up bhakti, just like the sun purifies everything. So just coming in contact with Krishna, by associating devotees, one gets purified, and eventually one's devotion takes on the characteristic of is pure. Now that's a whole big subject in itself, but because, for instance, if one has material desires or material wants, it doesn't necessarily mean that one cannot practice pure devotional service. Okay, that sounds a bit contradictory. Now that will be explained further in Bhakti Mr. Sindhu, further in Nectar Devotion. Yeah. In essence, okay, we are coming with baggage, yeah, in our subtle body. Yeah. We're coming with it. Yeah. But our ultimate intent is to be free of the baggage. Yeah. We want to be free of material desire. So that's the attitude of someone on the path of pure devotion. Yeah. Okay, I would like to, my subtle body is contaminated with lust or whatever, but still I'm going to serve Krishna. But I'm praying, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavatam Bada Gadishika. I want to be free of that, Krishna. That's a pure devotee. Yeah. They're pure, the intent is pure. Yeah. Some people are quite outright, why they're serving Krishna is to get rich, and they're quite upfront about it. Yeah, but if I serve Krishna, I'm going to be, my kids are going to do well in the exams, if I pray to Krishna, I might get the detached house in Surrey, And that's their motive. And they're not pure devotees, but someone may come and know the principle, but they may not be purified to act. You understand? So Prabhupada describes like an unripe mango and a ripe mango. So mango is mango, whether it's ripe or unripe. Yeah. And then we have the story of Dhruva Maharaj, who approached Krishna with a big fat material desire. It wasn't a small one. He wanted a whole universe, bigger than Lord Brahma, who happened to create all the universes. But he became purified, and he felt very he felt very ashamed, having seen the beautiful form of Vishnu and becoming purified and fully satisfied with that darshan. He became ashamed for approaching Vishnu with material desires. Yeah, so that's his journey through the coming to pure devotion in the full sense of the term. Okay, So yeah. Any questions about that? Yes. So free from ulterior motive. Sunyam. Anyabhilasata sunyam, void. It doesn't mean the personal void. There's no other motive but raga. There's no other motive but affection for Krishna. Yeah. Prabhupada says, any desire except for the service of the Lord is called material desire. Yeah. Now there's something else that Rupa Goswami brings out here as well. Anyabhilasa ta. Okay, let's see if we can explain this. The word is actually anyabhilasata. Yeah. So Abhilas, More Abhilas, we pray in Tulsi Puja. Please my desires to obtain the service of Radha Krishna. So Abhilas is desire. So Abhilasita. Rupa Goswami wrote Abhilasita. So that means desire, that means the actual motive. Yeah. So the integral, so with motive is a desire that is integral part of one's nature. Okay, let me explain more. Now, one can have a personal desire, but it doesn't mean it's outside of the realm of devotional service. Okay? Let's repeat that again. One can have a personal desire and still not be out of the realm of devotional service. I explained that a little bit, but a bit more here. Now, as long as that desire is not an integral part of one's nature. Yeah. So, for example, if someone's dedicated their full energy to serving, full energy to advancement in their devotion, say they're suddenly put in a life-threatening situation. They've got Krishna, save me. Yeah. Now it's not a desire for Krishna's pleasure. It's a personal desire. And it's a desire for self-preservation. But it's not integral to the devotee's definition or motive is why they're engaged in devotional service. You understand? They're not thinking, okay, I'm going to serve Krishna because I know at some point in time someone's going to try to kill me. And then if someone tries to kill me, Krishna's going to save me. So that's why I'm serving Krishna. Do you understand? No. Suddenly their life's put in danger. Krishna! Yeah. In one sense, you could just like the residents of Vrindavan when Indra was sending his rains. Krishna! Save us! Yeah. It's not an integral part of their being. It's just circumstances. They automatically, because they're pure devotees, they automatically go to Krishna. Do you follow that? So that's anyabhilasita. So that means the desire to, that means your desire to buy a bag of rice in Sainsbury's, basmati rice. Yeah, you want to eat basmati rice. You don't want to eat ordinary rice. You like basmati rice. It doesn't mean you're not a pure. It doesn't mean you're not on the path of pure devotion. If you desire to pay the bills in your house, you need a house, yeah, so you can live. If you desire, there's so many things we need for life, isn't it? So many things when you got to pay the council tax, you got to pay the, service charges, for the place where you live, Oh, I have to let me pay that. It doesn't mean you're not on the path of pure devotion. It's integral. It happens to be, it's not part of your inner motive for serving Krishna. It's part of life. It's part of existing. So you need to protect your life. You need to have a situation. You understand? So that doesn't mean you're not the pure devotee if you want to eat some jacket potatoes. Okay? It's for you have to eat. You have to eat. So Rupa Goswami, he's making this specifically because some people will say that you have to go to the Himalayas. You shouldn't desire to eat anything. You should just be there in meditation in the Himalayas, This is real devotion. No. Of Rupa Goswami is being very specific here. No, that desire for life is not against the principles of pure devotion. Yeah, it's a bit subtle, but it's interesting when we bring it out, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah. So in other words, I've already said this, but it's in my notes. It's here again. To give scope to the feasibility of executing pure devotional service, even in the stage of sadhana bhakti. Okay, so you can be practicing sadhana bhakti, but you can be a pure devotee. Yeah, because you're on the path of pure devotion. Okay, so then we have so we more have a more understanding of that now, free from ulterior motive. So then Jnana Kamadi Anavritam. It's not covered. I think this question was asked earlier. It's not covered by Gyan or Karma. Okay, now let's be clear. We're into knowledge of about we want to develop Gyan, but the Gyan of pure devotion. Yeah, we want to know the qualities of Krishna. You are studying the Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. You are studying Bhakti Sastri. You want knowledge. Yeah, we want to acquire knowledge about Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojan. Yeah. This Gyan here means of knowledge for knowledge's sake without its connection to Krishna. Yeah. Or impersonal conceptions of so-called oneness. I think we're familiar with that. This is what comes out here. Yeah. So let me just read this. It is not that one must completely rule out all philosophical speculation. But okay. But if one's philosophical interest becomes more prominent than one's concentration on simple bhakti, they will cover one's devotional attitude and disqualify him from pure devotional service. So it's subtle as well. Okay, now we're speaking about devotees, and they're learning slokas, they're learning this, and their desire, instead of loving devotion, their devotion's becoming covered. Abas, it's becoming, what's the word for cover again? Pachur, cover.
Avrit.
Huh?
Avrit.
Pavrit.
Anavritam, the second part. Avritam.
No, there's another word I'm looking for. Anyway, it come to mind. So in other words, it can be quite subtle. You're reading, you're studying Bhakti Sastri, and you become, you're reading acharyas and this and that, or you may be trying to learn verses that may become your prominent aspiration to have knowledge and to be known as having knowledge. That means your pure devotion is becoming covered. Yeah. So we want knowledge so we can know what is pure devotion. We can know what is Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojan. Yeah, so that we can execute pure devotional service. Otherwise, that will qualify one from pure devotional service. Okay, so it can be quite subtle. Okay. So the ultimate end of philosophical speculation then must be Krishna. So philosophical speculation here means you read Bhagavad Gita, okay, let me understand what this verse means according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam says this, okay. In the Priti Sandarbha it says this, or in the Ishopanishad it says this. So that's okay. We're allowed to do that. Yeah. Philosophical speculation, not speculating, just speculating not based on Sastra. Yeah. So the ultimate end of all this, of all philosophical speculation, there must be Krishna. With the understanding that Krishna is everything, the cause of all causes, and that one should therefore surrender to him. Yeah, that's why we want to get knowledge. If this ultimate goal is reached, then philosophical advancement is favorable. But if the conclusion of philosophical speculation is voidism and impersonalism, it is not bhakti. Yeah, just like someone's trying to understand what is God, and they're not reading Bhagavad Gita, they're not reading Srimad Bhagavatam, they're not reading the Vedic scriptures. They're just sitting there in their front room, thinking in their brain, thinking, oh, God is this, what is God is that, and they're looking at all these books, from other speculators, from other atheists, etc. Yeah, Purnika Shop.
Yeah. What if I'm, just to take an extreme example, what if I'm a university philosophy lecturer? That's my main job. But outside of ours, I do everything for Krishna. I'm a devotee. Then I suppose is that where does that stand?
No, then that's, as we've previously described it,
Yeah.
that's Anyabhilasita. That's your occupation.
Mm.
That's your work. That's your means of income. So therefore, you're going to go into realms of, going to go into realms of Greek philosophy and Freud and etc. You're going to read those books, but you're very clear for yourself. You should be very clear of where you stand actually. But as far as that, but you're just part of the curriculum means. So that's your maintenance. That's Anyabhilasita, Yeah,
Thanks.
also that could be a challenge as well. I know devotees have entered into the realm of academia, and sometimes they can be challenged. If they go too far down that route without staying in touch with their devotional roots, it can be a problem. That's why generally those who go down that route, you want to have a mentor, a devotee academic mentor to actually guide you down that route so you do not get sidetracked, Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah. And all right, so please, yeah.
Same goes for this exploration that you are describing. Let's say I want to find more from Bhagavatam, I want to find more from Sandarbha, but this also can have a corner case where I'm just lost the track and it has just become about acquiring more or just over analyzing Sanskrit and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that out again. So we want to be careful. What started off as a pure kind of pursuit might end up covering actual pure devotional service. Yeah. Because Krishna's not impressed with ultimately how many slokas we know, etc. There's devotees who don't know any slokas, but they have great devotion. Yeah. So we should also keep that in mind, But it doesn't mean as well if someone knows loads of slokas, that means they're not pure devotees. That's another side. Yeah, their motive, it may be devotion. They're so attached to Krishna, they love memorizing slokas about Krishna, and that's why they're doing it. They got a taste, they got ruchi, and they love learning it and they love reciting it. Yeah. Yeah. So it can be quite subtle. Yeah. All right. Now, let's just now the last number 2 here. Time check. Okay, half an hour. Free from ulterior, no, not covered by. Well, we mentioned that philosophical or fruitive pursuit. So we mentioned the philosophical side now. Ritualistic pursuits. I just read this sentence here. Similarly, one may engage in ordinary social or religious activities, but such engagements must not become more prominent than one's engagement in direct bhakti. Okay, if such activities overshadow one's attention to devotional activities like Shravanam Kirtanam, they cover one's devotional attitude and disqualify him from pure devotional service. Then you're not practicing according to Anyabhilasata Sunyam, Jnana Kamara Navaratam, Anukuglena Krishnano, Silanam Bhakti Ottama. So, for example, you're practicing devotional and someone in your family dies. you're expected, you're expected to go to, you're asked to go to the funeral, so that's karma. It's ritualistic activities. Yeah. So devotion should be free of that. That means you don't go. No, you should understand that by going, Krishna's going to protect me. Yeah. Or it's two ways. Krishna's going to protect me. And if I don't go for some reason, I cannot, or I don't go, yeah, then it's not going to impede my devotional service. Did that make sense? We're doing it out of duty, maybe some degree a loving duty, but doesn't become more deep. The activity in itself doesn't become more prominent than one's bhakti. So for another example, perhaps a more clear example, I know devotees who are, I know a few devotees, many who are coming from Hindu families, coming from Gujarat backgrounds, etc. And they're constantly, this is one of the challenges they have. Their families invite them to this event, that event, this event, that event, etc., etc. And they're really kind of not so inclined to go. But in order to keep the stability of the relationship with the family, they kind of feel obliged to go. Yeah. But them going, they're not thinking, if I go, I can advance in my devotional service. No, they're not thinking like that. They're thinking, let me do my duty. But actually, it doesn't take more prominence in their life than they're chanting 16 rounds a day. You understand? So therefore, devotees, we will be engaged in these things. But just because you attend, if you attend with the right mentality, it's not going to cover your pure devotion, your path of pure devotion. Okay. Now, we read here as well. Yeah, Prabhupada mentions there are many persons who are very much attracted by ritualistic activities described in the Vedas. But if one becomes attracted simply by ritualistic activities, without understanding Krishna, then these are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada gives an example of a ritualistic activity that does not cover devotional service, are those performed simply out of, as I mentioned, social convention. An example of this is Lord Chaitanya's offering pinda to his departed father. So social convention. So not covered by philosophical or fruitive pursuits. Fruitive pursuits. Now we have a clearer understanding of what that actually means. Yeah. Any questions? Purnikushopu, you mentioned this in the beginning. Karma. I think you mentioned that you asked the question from the perspective of karma yoga.
Yeah, I think that's much clearer now. I think, yeah.
Yeah. There's also such things as yoga and astrology as well. Just keep an eye on it. It shouldn't cover our. We can't get okay. You're doing yoga to get fit. Then you do more yoga. Then you do more yoga, and you start to do this asana, that asana. Yeah. Then you do more yoga, 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day. Then you start entering into yoga competitions. Then you neglect. Then you haven't got time to. You haven't got time to go to the temple on Sunday because you're going to go to a yoga show. You know, or astrology, it may start off innocent, and so you have to be careful. Sometimes, general devotees, when they go away from devotional service, it starts from very subtle. Yeah, in like a needle and out like a plow. Yeah. Maybe you start. I mean, I know one devotee. He became brilliant at Sanskrit. I mean, he joined the ashram, and he became really attracted to Sanskrit, even to the point that he learned all the roots of the Sanskrit language, to the point that he became quite, he was invited to become part of the translation team in Govardhan that translates all the books of the Acharyas into English. You know, he became very proficient in Sanskrit. But then he got into astrology, and that took him away. You know, he took him away. His astrology said, you will be like this, you will get this, you will get that. Anyway, he got bewildered by astrology, and he became upset because he was quite analytical. Because he was attracted to Sanskrit, and he had quite an analytical, Brahminical aptitude in verbs and that of the Sanskrit language, and he became expert. But that same type of mentality, he got into astrology, and he got into all the details of astrology, all the planets and this and that and this and that, and it took him away from devotion, took him away from devotional service. You know, so we have to be careful. Yeah. Okay, astrology is mentioned in our scriptures, it's mentioned in Bhagavatam, but we do it with a certain sense of detachment. Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya talks about the devotional service creeper is quite vulnerable, really vulnerable. I mean, you know,
Yes, yes.
and you have to kind of protect it on all sides. And the mind is one of the things that definitely going to pull you away, you know, very easily to the material energy. And I think
Yeah.
it has to be kind of a constant. I mean, it's a constant application, isn't it? It's like you've got to do it every day, especially if you're not at that stage. You've got to be
Yeah,
really careful with your constant applications. You don't deviate and focus, and
yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah, that's why you could use this verse as kind of a mission statement in your life. So what am I doing? So all the things I'm doing in my life, does it come in line with this verse? Anyabalasta sunyam. You know, you can do like a check, a inventory. So where do I stand here? Okay, I'm getting involved in this sport or this or that, and is it coming in line with this verse? And Yabalastas, is my devotion becoming covered? Yeah. Also, what's important as well is the association of devotees. Yeah, they're the direction from your shiksha or diksha guru. They're there. If there's any doubts, you can bring it up to them. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing that. Now I'm going to go here, now I'm going to go there. And they would say, forget it, you nonsense. You're going off the path. Or they may say, okay, but just keep in mind, you know, just like that. Patik Prabhu, Bhava Sindhu Prabhu, Bhava Sindhu Gaur Prabhu, please.
Yeah. So, so this is enjoying like for own sense gratification of your mind and your senses, whatever you're doing. Is it something like that, Prabhu? Like, uh, first the motivation is to please the Krishna and the devotees, and then it becomes pleasing oneself, probably taking whatever service we start with, like that example you gave of somebody who started learning Sanskrit, then he went into astrology, and
Yeah.
then that's like a pleasure of mine, and that took him away, not actually pleasing Krishna.
Yeah,
Is
you could explain it
yes,
like that.
it happens with
Yeah.
like, a regular basis as well, like any service maybe has some like fruits out of it, but then we, instead of offering it to Krishna, we, if we take it for ourselves, like whatever we get
Yeah.
out of any service, we deviate, and the motive internally changes, although the activity will looks the same after. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, that's correct. Yes, it's good synopsis what you're explaining from subtle to gross. That's why it's good for us to regularly hear about pure devotion, regularly attend Bhagavatam class, regularly hear from devotees. Then we can keep ourselves on the right track, as Purnakusha also brought up as well. It's mentioned in Madhya Lila, I think it's teachings to Rupa Goswami. Yeah, Rupa Goswami speaking about, oh, is it Sanatana Goswami? He's speaking about the Bhakti Lada Bija, yeah, and how as it grows, then weeds can grow. So then he mentions that we should fence the creeper, just like you have a plant and you fence it round so it doesn't get destroyed. So we should keep ourselves in association with devotees so they can, we can hear, and if we're sincere, when we hear the principles of devotion, we can then analyze and see, where I'm going adrift, And devotional service is generally like that. It's generally, you got to adjust yourself, adjust your motives. You got to reflect. Different motives will come up when you're engaging in devotional activity. You may start, for instance, you may start learning harmonium, and then you get skilled at it. Then when you get skilled at it, people tell you you're very good. Then you start getting invited to do bhajans, and then 10 people like you, 20 people like, and before know your inspiration to do it may be more because of what's coming from it than what it originally started out to be. So you have to do some inventory. You have to do some deep reflection. I mean, all devotees who do these type of services, it's something that they have to do. It's something that they do because there's a lot of them are expert at kirtan. But they're also very conscientious. They're always, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for the wrong reason? And we should always ask ourselves these questions, to make sure we're on the path of Anyabhalasana Sanyam Jnana Kama and Avritam, and we're not going off the path. Yeah. Satyakumar, Nimai.
Yeah, just following on from the point you're making there, Prabhu. Radha Londonishvara Prabhu recommended that I listen to a YouTube podcast. It was with Mother Urmila, speaking about her book Pariya Dharma.
Yeah,
I've
been reading that book. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that really resonated with me, one point she made is that because she doesn't call them the Sanskrit names for the four Varnas, but she talks about ideas people, and she says that if you're part of the ideas, then you would be attracted to truth and wisdom, and it's not about the aesthetics. Which is, I think, the point that you're making there. It's not about the melody and the this and that, and it's just really about the truth and the wisdom. So yeah, just kind of distinguishing that.
Yeah. So that's a nice correlation. Yeah, it's an interesting book she wrote, thesis she's wrote. Yeah. Yeah. So this is why we need the association of devotees as well, to keep us in line, Because the fact is, there are plenty of persons who come to Krishna consciousness, but there's plenty of persons also who go away from the practice of pure devotion. They maintain some type of level of practice, but it may not be what it originally was, So that's why we should study, we should hear, keep ourselves on track. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments? Here, otherwise we can get a little peek into chapter 1. That completes the preface and introduction. Lots of interesting points in there. All right, so let me just bring out, where did I put it? Here. Okay, excuse me while I play around a bit with the slides. Oh, you see a bit of a slide there. Just bear with me. Okay, we could finish here, but I think good to, sorry, get some start into chapter 1. I was hoping to complete chapter 1 today, but I shall make adjustments as we go through the next few Sundays. I'll be adjusting things so we do finish on time. Okay, so that was the introduction, the preface and the introduction. So let's have a little look in the last few minutes, 10 minutes or so, into chapter 1. So what are the characteristics of pure devotional service? This is going to be discussed here. Obviously, this is what it says in the slide. Characteristics, pure devotional service. Okay. I just read this here. My dear mother, those who are my pure devotees. So Rupa Goswami is quoting this from Srimad Bhagavatam. and who have no desire for material benefit, as we discussed on Yabalasta Sunyam, or philosophical speculation, have their minds so much engaged in my service that they are never interested in asking me for anything except to be engaged in that service. They do not even beg to live in my abode with me. So Rupa Goswami is continuing, expanding on this principle. We could say the whole of the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakta Smriti Sindhu, is based on this verse and Yabalasta Sunyam. So he's given this, he's giving further evidence and a proof of the purity of Uttam Bhakti. Yeah, further evidence is being given here of the topmost devotion. Yeah, to the point where they do not even beg to live in my abode with me. Yeah, sometimes that's questioned. Yeah. Now, if it's favorable, then devotees will accept that. If they can help Krishna pack his lunch, if they can help Krishna herd the cows, if they can help Krishna in his Leela and pastimes and they're attracted to that, obviously they're going to accept that. Yeah. Any questions about this? Yeah. Okay. They're not even begged to live. In other words, devotee, because it's, because the spiritual world, it's quite a cushy place. There's no time, there's no anxiety. So devotee is not, oh, I want to go back to Gula, I want to. No, it has to. There's so much as explained here, there's so much absorbed in Krishna. So they're happy serving Krishna. There's verses that explain that. Maharaj Chitraketu, when he was cursed, yeah, then he simply folded his hands, and Lord Shiva said to Parvati, just see, this is the Lord's devotees. They don't mind going to hell as long as they can remember and serve Krishna. Yeah, so that's not, devotees, not major motive is to get out of this place. Yeah, it may be a good place to start, actually. Inspire us in devotion. Yes, Satchikamani Nimai Prabhu.
I was thinking somewhere, I think I remember Srila Prabhupada talking about that there are different types of perfections. And I think one of them was to enter into the abode of Krishna or to have a similar form of Krishna or something like that.
Yeah, there's different types of liberation. And that verse, there's more verses that are quoted in chapter 1 in that regard. Yeah, different times to become the same opulences as Krishna, live on the same bodily features as Krishna, live on the same planet as Krishna, etc. Yeah. So the characteristics of pure devotion is that its devotee is free of those aspirations. Yeah. So he quotes a verse on the Bhagavatam to actually bring that out. Yeah. Okay, so that begins. Now, the 6 qualities of pure devotional service, which is going to be discussed now. And I'll give you a little insight as well. Also, that's coming up later, but I'll mention it here. Rupa Goswami, as we mentioned in the beginning, he's given an explanation in chapters 1 to 19 of Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. Okay? So each of these has 2 distinct characteristics. Yeah. So here are the 6 pure devotional qualities of pure devotion. Okay, so here at the stage of sadhana, and we'll explain this more. What's the time? We've got 4 minutes. Okay. Pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. So in Sanskrit, it's called Klesh Agni. Okay, we'll expand on it more next week, but for now. And the second characteristic is pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness, subhada. Now, detail given here is that this subhada and klesh agni is going to manifest in one's life when one is at the stage of nishta, Yeah, it's got to really be seen at the stage. You know, have these stages given by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, these different stages of devotion. Yeah, faith and Shraddha associating with devotees, bhajan kriya, and then nishta. Yeah, so then one's life starts becoming bright. One starts to feeling good about existence. Yeah, it means your life is becoming more auspicious, and your klesh agni. Yeah, you that basically you've turned away from material pursuits, so therefore it frees you from a lot of unnecessary stress. Just taking up the path, klesh agni. Okay, so then at the stage of bhava, pure devotional service puts one in transcendental pleasure, moksha lokhuta krit. Yeah, so it derides even the pleasure of impersonal liberation. Okay. I think I need to put this here. 1 second. Okay, that's better. Yeah. And it's very rarely achieved. Bhava, Sadulabha. Now, interesting, do we have time? 2 minutes. In reading in Bhakti Smriti Sindhu, I came across a very interesting paragraph by Jiva Goswami, which I can't remember coming across before. This pure devotional service, it says it's really rarely achieved. Sadulabha. And the reasons is given. One of the reasons, because it actually ultimately is going to control Krishna. But actually, Jiva Goswami brings out that actually it's easy to achieve if one practices Kevala Bhakti, if one is not making offenses, then it can be achieved. Yeah. So this is more, it's speaking about it cannot be achieved if you take up other processes of sadhana. Yeah, it can be achieved if you practice sincerely the principles of sadhana given in Bhagavatam or given here in the Nectar of Devotion. Yeah. But otherwise, without that, it's sadulabha. If one is offensive, if one is not practicing properly, or if one's devotion is mixed, then it becomes very difficult. Yeah, then it's very difficult. Interesting note. I hadn't seen it from that perspective before. Okay. And in prema, those in pure devotion deride even the conception of liberation. Sandra Ananda Visheshatma. So different levels of happiness and bliss obtained. The highest there's one is complete. And there's a whole chapter dedicated. There's so many verses from Bhagavatam where it's bringing out these concepts, and we're going to cover that. Yeah. And it's the only means to attract Krishna. This is so the first two, sadhana, the second two, bhava, the third two, prema, in 6 in all. Yeah. So prema has 6. Yeah. Bhava has 4, and sadhana has 2. Okay. The only means to attract Krishna Akashini. And perhaps be a good place just to pause there, because I do like to stop on time. I hope you don't mind about that. Okay. So we'll stop here. If you have any questions that come up on what we've discussed today, you're welcome to put them in the WhatsApp group. Yeah. And I could look at that and try to answer as well. Okay.
Well, just quick
Yeah,
one.
please.
I think the reference to that verse is not right. Bhagavatam verse 3.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just go there. What is it? You got it there?
I've been trying to find it actually using the internet because I
And
had.
it's not there. That's why you've ascertained.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct. I think that's just been somehow it's got into one thing and people have kept copying it, but it's not correct.
Okay, I shall look into that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Well done, Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. We have Chandramurali Maharaj giving a nice lecture today.
It's 10, Prabhu. 3:29:10.
3:29:10. Thank you. You solved the mystery. Well done, Prashant. There you go. Hare Krishna, correctly. Okay, thank you everyone for your very kind attention, and look forward to continue our discussion next week. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Rupa Goswami ki jai. Nectar devotion ki jai. Bhakti Smrita Sindhu ki jai. Nidagaura Premanande Haribo.
Hari Bol. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.